Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Everlynn's Books and Tea. We're almost all the way through May, and everyone knows what that means. It means it's time to play our TBR game and choose our June TBR. I am so excited to see what I get on this June TBR. I feel like I've been reading a lot of fantasies lately, and I'm ready to mix it up a little bit. I'm ready for some romances, maybe some mysteries and thrillers, but it's going to be up to the game to decide what books we're going to get for this month. We're also officially entering summer. It's been in the 80s here a lot of the days. I am not a summer person. I do not like 80, 90-degree weather. I'm more of a 60s, 70s, spring, fall weather type person. But the one thing I do like about summer is being able to sit outside and read. So I'm hoping to get some good books on this TBR and hoping to enjoy the summer months. So let's get started with the game. For those who haven't seen this before, it's pretty simple. We'll roll a dice, make our way around a game board. Each color that we land on corresponds with a bag over here, which corresponds to different types of prompts. We'll choose a prompt, and then we'll choose both a physical book as well as a electronic book for each of the prompts. So we're going to have a total of 14 books at the end. So let's go ahead, bring up the game board, and do our first roll. So for the first roll, we rolled a 3 and we landed on yellow. So yellow is my favorite bag because it has all the prompts that change every month. So it's going to have prompts that have to do with the season, which we're still technically in spring. So it'll have some spring prompts in here. We'll also have prompts that have to do with June and the 2 astrological signs of June, which are Gemini and Cancer. So let's see what we get for our first prompt for June. All right, let's mix these up a little bit, and then we will split the deck here. And our first prompt of June is a prompt for June, and it is read a book that has best friends in it. So a book that features best friends. This could be difficult, or this could be easy. Let me take a look and see what I can come up with. I found 2 books that feature best friends in them. They're both fantasy books. So the first one is The Revenant Games by Margie Fuston. This does feature 2 best friends, Bly and Emerson, and Bly has to make the difficult decision on whether to save her dying best friend or to bring back her dead sister in this book. So that's our first option. And then our second option is City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. This is book 2 in the Mortal Instrument series. This one's set in a fantasy world where there are shadow hunters, werewolves, vampires. This book follows Clary along with her best friend Simon. The first book, it kind of thrusts them into this world that they didn't know exists, and they have to kind of deal with it and figure out what's going on. If you've seen the Shadowhunter series, you know what this book is about. So these are our 2 options. Out of these 2, since one of my other goals for June is to continue some series so I can, eventually finish them, hopefully by the end of 2024, I am going to go with City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I read the first book a couple of months ago. I overall enjoyed the first book, though I did have some trouble getting into it, and I think that's because I watched the Shadowhunter TV show first, so I knew a lot of what was going to happen, even though some things were a little bit different than the TV show. But I'm interested to see how the second book goes, how much it follows the TV show. So we will put this book on as our first book for our June TBR. All right, next up we need to choose our electronic book. So I did find 2 books that had best friends in them, whether they are major parts or minor parts, I'm not going to say. The first book is The School of Good and Evil, The Last Ever After, and this is book 3 in the School of Good and Evil series. It's a middle grade fantasy series that kind of revolves around fairy tales. There are best friends in this series. I'm not going to give away the names because I cannot remember if it gives away the plot of the first couple of books because it's been a while since I read them. So to be on the safe side, you're just going to have to believe me that there are best friends in this series. Our second option is Parallel. This is book 1 in the Traveler series. It features Etta, who is a orphan living in a institute for delinquent foster care children. And she also happens to have these powers that she doesn't know where she got them, but she doesn't really want them either. And then one day this man comes and finds her and thrusts her into this alternate universe. And in this universe, she is now attending a elite academy. She has a boyfriend, she has a best friend, hence the best friends. And she also has an aunt, and she has to figure out what is going on. So, out of these two books, I know I said I wanted to continue some series, but I think I'm going to actually go with parallel. And that's because it's a little bit different than the physical book that we chose, and it gives me a little bit more of a variety on what I want to choose to read for this prompt. So, this will be our first electronic book for this game. All right, so let's get back to the board and roll the dice for the second time. So for our second roll, we rolled a 4 and we landed on blue. So this bag has our cover prompts, some miscellaneous prompts, and then some series titles that I'm in the middle of. So let's see what we get for our second prompt of the game. Let me just mix these up real quick. And then we are going to, we are going to split the deck right here. And this will be our second prompt. Oops. All right, so we have a cover prompt, and it is a cover with a plant on it. All right, easy enough. There's so many covers that have plants on them, so this shouldn't be too difficult, and hopefully it will give us some good options. Let me take a look, and I'll be right back. All right, so I know what book I'm going to choose for this prompt, and it's a book that allows me to complete an entire series, which I'm so excited about. I cannot wait to be able to check a series off of my list. And that book is A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Birgit Kemmerer. This is the third and final book in her Cursebreaker series, and it's a series that is originally kind of like a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and then the second and third book kind of go on from there. It follows several different characters. I don't want to get too much into it because it will kind of ruin the first couple of books, it being the third book in the series. But I've really enjoyed reading the first two books, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this trilogy concludes. So this will be our second book on our TBR. So now we gotta find plants on the cover for our electronic TBR book. So there aren't that many books on my electronic TBR list for some reason that have plants on them, but I did find one, so this is the one that we are going to have to go with, and it is The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. And you can see that there are kind of trees in the background, so those are going to count as plants. This is a historical fiction book based on a true story, and it takes place, it takes place in Depression era America. It follows Alice Wright, who is from England, but ends up moving to Kentucky to marry her husband. So she's finding life in small town Kentucky a little bit difficult. She's having trouble kind of settling in when she hears about this new group that's forming that's going to be collecting books and creating a traveling library. So she ends up signing up for this, and her and some of the other women make a group that's called the Packhouse Librarians of Kentucky. And this is their story about what happens to them and what life brings them. And that will be our second option for this prompt. It will be The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. So far, we've gotten some good books on here. I do want to see if we can get some romance and mystery books, so hopefully this third roll will help us with that. So let's bring up the game board and see what we get. So for our third roll, we rolled a 4 and we landed on yellow again. So let's grab those game cards. Or prompt cards, I guess. And let's see what we get for our fourth prompt. Third prompt. All right, so let's mix them up real quick. And then let's split the deck. How about right here? And this will be our third prompt. It is a June prompt, and it is a book set near the ocean. All right, so we're starting to get into the summer vibe, so let's see if we actually have a book set near the ocean first. I was able to find one book that fits this prompt, and it is The Brighter the Light by Mary Ellen Taylor. This takes place at Nags Head, North Carolina, which is a beachside town, and there is the ocean here right on the cover. It follows Ivy, who has just inherited her grandmother's cottage, and she has to move back to Nags Head, where her ex-best friend and her boyfriend once betrayed her. As she's digging through her grandmother's items in the cottage, she also starts to uncover these secrets, including a secret of the seaside resort that her family used to own. And she starts to uncover what happened this one fateful summer in 1950, where a dazzling singer shook the staff and guests alike, and not everyone in that resort made it to the fall. So it's a book of broken relationships, betrayals, mystery, So we'll kind of see what it's like. I think I got this in a book box, so I haven't really heard any reviews on it, but this will be our third book on our physical TBR for June. All right, now we gotta find a book near the ocean for our electronic TBR. So I had a little bit more difficulty finding a book that was set near the ocean on my electronic TBR list. And for this choice, you're just going to have to kind of go with it. And it's the closest I could get. And that is Far North by Michael Ridpath. This is book 2 in his Fire and Ice series. The book is set in Iceland, and Iceland is, near the ocean. It's an island. So that is what we're going to go with. It is a mystery series. It follows Detective Magnus Johnson, I believe. Yes, Magnus Johnson. So in this book, politicians and bankers are dying at home and abroad, and it's up to Magnus Johnson to figure out what is going on and why, and what this has to do with things that happened way back in the past, as far back as the 1930s. So that will be our our third electronic book option for June, Far North by Michael Ridpath. All right, perfect. We got another continuation of a series. We got a mystery book. So we are starting to broaden this TBR. So let's go ahead and roll our fourth dice, or not our fourth dice. Let's do our fourth roll of the game and see what we end up on. Alright, so for this roll, we rolled a 6 and we ended up on blue again. So let's grab the cards and see what we get for our fourth prompt. So again, these have our cover prompts, some miscellaneous prompts, and some series titles. So let's see what we get. Alright, let's set the deck right there. And our fourth prompt is a miscellaneous prompt, and it is an author from a different country. So I live in the US, so we just have to find an author that is not from the US. So let's see what options we have. For this prompt, I am going to go with Maeve Binchy's Echoes. Maeve Binchy is from Ireland, so it fits the prompt nicely. This is a kind of contemporary fiction romance book and follows the two main characters, Claire and David, who are growing up in Ireland from two different social classes. And when they become adults, they end up falling in love. But they have to deal with all that their social classes bring, as the world wants to keep them apart because of that. So this will be our fourth book on our This will be our fourth book on our physical TBR, Echoes by Maeve Binchy. All right, so we have to look at our electronic TBR and see what options we have over there. So the book we are going to go with for our electronic TBR is The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. She lives in the United Kingdom, which is not the US, though she has lived in the US. She is half British, half Trinidadian, so it fits the prompt well. So this book is a fantasy book. It follows this family named the Everleys, and for centuries, the Everleys have been taken as punishment for a crime that no one even remembers what it was by this woman named Penelope, who is pretty much immortal. She lives forever, she doesn't seem to grow old, and she takes the members of this family to pay off this crime. So Violet Everly was a child when her mother was taken. Her mother was determined to finally stop this curse, but her mother never returned. So Penelope now has this ultimatum for Violet. She must find her mother within the next 10 years, or she will take her mother's place. And to do that, she has to travel into the magical underworld, where she meets all these different creatures, monsters, Penelope's secretary, and she has to find a way to find her mother and the key to the City of Stardust, where the Everly story once began. So the City of Stardust will be our fourth electronic book on our TBR. So now we have fantasy, but we also got some mystery, some romance in here. So let's see what we get for our fifth roll. Let's bring up the game board. So for our fifth roll, we rolled an 8, and this time we ended up on pink for the first time. So let's grab our pink bag here. This bag has our prompts that have to do with the title of the book, and it also has some miscellaneous and series titles in here as well. All right, so let's mix up the cards real quick since it's the first time we're using this bag. All right, so let's split the deck here, and let's see what we get for our fifth prompt. All right, we have a series prompt, and it is Death in Series. So this is a series by MMK. It's a kind of standalone mystery series where you can read each book on its own. It's a classical type mystery series as well. These books were written a while ago and kind of have like the classic feel, kind of like your Agatha Christie books. So the book for me that's next in the series is Death in Kashmir, which is actually book 1 on the order that they're written. I read a different book a while back. So this book takes place at a ski resort in the Vale of Kashmir and follows Sarah Parrish, who's taking a skiing vacation there, when she finds out that 2 members of her party have been found dead, and it's the result of foul play. She finds herself entrusted with a mission to figure out what happened, what is going on, and even when she leaves the ski slopes for a houseboat on the placid shores of the Dal Lake, she discovers that the killer will stop at nothing to keep her from finding out the truth. So that will be our 5th electronic TBR book, Death in Kashmir by MMK. And because this was a series pick, we can't use it to choose a book for our physical TBR, so we are going to have to choose a new prompt to get that book. Alright, well, let's split the deck one more time. And let's see what prompt we will be using. It's a miscellaneous prompt, and it is a novella, short story, or graphic novel. The book that I have that most closely fits this prompt is The End We Start From by Megan Hunter. It's a pretty short book. I would call it a short enough story. It's a novella. It's a little under 140 pages. It's set in London after there's been this big flood, and London is basically underwater. A woman has just given birth to her first child, and days later, she and her baby are now forced to flee London, and they head up through the dangerous North Country, and this is their story. So that is, again, The End We Start From by Megan Hunter. It will be our 5th book on our TBR list. All right, 5 books down, 2 more to go. Let's bring up the game board and see what we get for our 6th roll. So for our 6th roll, we rolled a 3. We landed on yellow once again. So let's grab those cards. And again, these are our monthly, seasonal, and astrological prompts. So let's see what we get. Let's split the deck here. And this will be our 6th prompt for June. It is a astrological prompt, and it is a author I haven't read before. All right, that's easy enough. There are plenty of authors on both my electronic TBR and my physical TBR that I have not read. So let's see what our options are. This is a hard decision, choosing a book from an author I didn't read before, because there are so many on here that I want to read, and there's also so many electronic books that are from authors I haven't read before that I want to read, that it makes the decision of which books to choose difficult. I've brought it down to one physical book and one electronic book, either of which I'll be excited to read this month. The physical book is going to be Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. No, I have not read a book by her yet. This book has been on my TBR multiple times, as has the electronic book I'm going to choose. So I'm excited to be able to get one of these books off of my TBR. This is book 1 in her Throne of Glass series. So this book follows a woman who has been taken prisoner, and to escape, she has to win her freedom by defeating 23 murderers, thieves, and warriors in a competition. And if she wins that competition, she will serve as the king's champion. So this is our physical book option for this prompt. Again, it's going to be Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, obviously a very popular series that I'm excited to read. So like I said, my electronic book choice has also been on this TBR multiple times, so I'm excited to finally check off one of these books this month. And the electronic book choice is going to be Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is by Heather Fawcett. This is book 1 in the Emily Wilde series and has been out now for, I think, a couple of years. It follows Emily Wilde, who's a Cambridge professor whose expertise is on fairies. She ends up taking this journey to an island where her goal is to learn more about the fairies and the hidden folk. But the only problem is that her rival, Wendell Bamblebee, also arrives there and keeps getting in her way. Will the two fall in love? Will they not? That remains to be seen. So this will be our 6th electronic book option. Again, that is Emily Wilde, Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. All right, it is time for our final roll for June. So let's bring up the game board and see what we get. So for our final roll, we rolled a 4 one more time, and we ended on blue. So these, again, are our cover prompts, miscellaneous prompts, and some series prompts. So let's see what we get for our last prompt of June. All right, so here are the cards. Let's split them right here, and let's see what our final prompt is. It is a cover prompt, and it is a cover with food on it. All right, cover with food. This one's always difficult. I don't know why I seem to get this prompt so much. I already know, actually, this book, oh, it says it has to cover of food on it. I can't even use the candy house because that's in the title. All right, let me take a look and see what we got. Can't spell treason with T. There's no teapot. All right, I have some options. They are kind of a eclectic trio of options, but they are options. We got a baby bottle, milk. That's food. Like I said before in a previous video, I choose food and drink for these prompts. This is Housebroken Confessions of a Stay-at-Home Dad. So that is an option. We have The Night Country, which is book 2 in the Hazelwood duology. And this one has a cup of, it looks like coffee on it. So that is also an option. And then we have A Wind in the Door by Madeline L. Engel, which is the second book in her time quintet. And this one has, I don't know, oranges or apples on it. So all food, all drinks. So out of these three, I think I'm going to go with The Night Country by Melissa Albert. It's the duology for the Hazelwood series, and if I end up reading this month, I will have completed the series, so it will be another series checked off my list. There's not much I can tell you about this book without spoiling the first book, other than that it's a series that is based on these fairy tales, and it's kind of like a dark fairy tale retelling. I don't even know if it's a retelling, but it reads like a dark fairy tale. So we will add this book to our physical TBR for June, The Night Country by Melissa Albert. Then the last thing we have to do is choose our electronic book. I have found 2 books that have food on the cover for the electronic books, and both covers happen to feature fruit. So the 2 options are Commonwealth by Anne Patchett, which it looks like oranges are on the cover. This is a family saga book that goes over like 5 generations of the family that's featured in the book. And then our second option is The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, and this one has lemons on the cover. So out of these 2, I am going to go with The Villa because it's set in Italy, and to me, lemons and where it's set kind of just feels like summer. It's also a mystery thriller book, which I've been trying to get more of on my TBR for June as well. So it kind of fits 2 criteria. So The Villa was pretty popular. I think it was last year. It was a Goodreads Choice nominee as well. It's a mystery thriller that features 2 best friends, Chess and Emily, who are traveling to Italy to spend some time in the villa and just kind of reconnect. The villa they end up choosing is famous for a murder that took place many years ago back in 1974. Emily is very interested in this and ends up starting to research it and comes to realize that there may be more behind the story than people actually know. So the closer that Emily gets to finding the truth, there is more and more tension between her and her best friend Chess. She also is finding secrets that occurred back in the past as well as secrets from current time period. And this may all end up in someone else being murdered. So it sounds like a fun little murder mystery. And that will be our last book for our June TBR. It'll be The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. So that completes our June TBR. We have our 14 books that we can choose from this month. And I think we have a pretty good variety. We definitely have fantasy, but I think we have some romance and some mystery in there as well, which makes me happy. And we also have some books that will complete series, which is amazing. So I'm going to run through the 14 books we have, and I will let you know which book of the pair of books for each prompt I'm leaning towards reading for this month. For our first prompt, we had a book that features best friends, and our options are City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare, which is book 2 in the Mortal Instrument series, and Parallel by Claudia Lefebvre. I'm most likely going to choose City of Ashes just so I can make some more headway into the series. For our second prompt, we had a cover with a plant on it, and we have the options of The Giver of Stars by Jojo Mize, which has trees in the background, and A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Birgit Kemmerer, which has plants and flowers on it. Of these 2 options, I'm probably going to read A Vow So Bold and Deadly because it will finish off the Cursebreaker series, and I also really enjoyed reading the series, and I'm excited to see how it ends. For our third prompt, we have set near the ocean. And our two options are The Brighter the Light by Mary Ellen Taylor and Far North by Michael Ridpath. For this prompt, I'm probably going to read Far North by Michael Ridpath. I really enjoyed the first book, and I think that these mysteries set in Iceland are pretty unique. So that will most likely be the book I choose for this prompt. For our fourth prompt, we had an author from a different country, and our options are Echoes by Maeve Binchy, who's from Ireland, and The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers, who's from the UK and is also half Trinidadian. For this prompt, I'm most likely going to read The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers because it fits my science fiction fantasy monthly prompt, which is a book that has monsters in it. So for our fifth prompt, we actually had two prompts. The first was the next book in the Death in series by MMK. And for that, we have Death in Kashmir by MMK. And then we also had the prompt of a novella, short story, or graphic novel. And for that, we chose The End We Start from Megan Hunter. Of these books, I'm probably going to go with the mystery book, which is Death in Kashmir by MMK. These books give me that classic mystery feel, and that's kind of what I've been in the mood for lately. For our sixth prompt, we had an author I haven't read before, and our two options are Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas and I just dropped it, and Emily Wiles' Encyclopedia of Fairies. I honestly don't know which book I'm going to choose from. It's probably going to come down to whether I need another physical book, because these are the books I usually read before I go to bed, or if I am, running out of Kindle books. So both of these books I kind of want to read the same, so we're just going to have to kind of wait and see which book I end up reading for this prompt. All right, and then for our last prompt, we got a cover of food on it, and our two options are The Night Country by Melissa Albert, which has coffee, and we have The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. This is another one I'm not too sure which one I'm going to read. This book will finish this duology, but this seems just like a fun mystery thriller book. So again, we're just going to have to kind of wait and see which book I end up choosing for this prompt. All right, so that completes our June TBR. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoy making it. I'm so excited to get to these books, and I hope that your June TBRs go well and that you have a lot of books on them that you're excited to read. If you have read any of these books, or if you have any thoughts about which book I should read for each pair, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!